You know how sometimes a single, simple sentence from a kid can just blow the lid off a much bigger family issue? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're going to break down one conversation between a mom, a dad, and their son to pull out some really powerful lessons on communication and parenting. So, let's jump right in.
Okay, so it all kicks off with this. A young boy, Audie, says, "I do not want to join the dance class. Dancing is for girls." Now, on the surface, this might just sound like a kid being a kid, right? But it's so much more than that. It's really the tip of the iceberg. This one little comment, this common gender stereotype, is about to set off a major family discussion. And it makes you wonder, right? Where did a little boy even get an idea like that?
All right, so here's our game plan for breaking this all down. We'll start with how the stereotype gets spoken out loud. Then, we'll see how a really strategic conversation gets started. After that, we'll get into the thick of the argument, see how it unfolds, and then an apology with a pretty surprising new twist. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with the big positive parenting takeaways.
So, that question, where did he get that idea, brings us right into our first section, a stereotype is spoken. We're about to see how Audie's comment wasn't just some random thought. Nope, it points to something much deeper, a belief he learned from somewhere.
And there it is. With just a little gentle questioning from his mom, Audie tells her exactly where he heard it. Papa says that boys are meant for stronger things. Girls are for dancing and such things. Wow. So this idea didn't just pop into his head. It came straight from his dad. And that's a huge first lesson, isn't it? Kids are like sponges. They just soak up and repeat the values they hear at home.
Okay, so this discovery leads us right into Section 2, a strategic conversation. Now, knowing the stereotype came from her husband, Audie's mom doesn't just storm in and start a fight. Oh no. Instead, she puts together what is basically a masterclass in how to start a really difficult conversation.
And her approach is just brilliant. It's this simple three-step strategy to kind of disarm the conflict before it even begins. First, she creates a totally calm atmosphere. We're talking samosas and tea. You can't argue over samosas. Then, she starts asking these broad, non-accusatory questions about his work. And only after all that does she state the problem, and she does it so neutrally, just quoting what their son said. See, it's not an attack, it's more like she's just trying to understand. And that quiet investigation, well, that leads us straight to Section 3, the argument unfolds. This is where we see all the classic moves of a tough conversation play out. We've got denial, we've got deflections, and this slow, painful search for what's actually true. So when Mama asks him about women in his company, Papa's response is really fascinating. He's super proud, talking all about the diversity and inclusion at his job, even bragging about winning an award for it. So he clearly gets it, right? He understands and values these ideas in his professional life. But is he living them at home? And this number just perfectly highlights that disconnect. 35%. He's proud of having that many women in his company. But that statistic becomes this stark contrast between his values at work and the personal biases he's passing on to his son. It's the classic do as I say, not as I do situation.
So when Mama finally brings up the real issue, what Audie actually said he heard, Papa's first reaction is just a flat-out denial. I never said anything like that. This is such a common human reaction, right? When we're faced with our own contradictions, the first instinct is often to just shut it down. Okay, so here's the crucial part. The denial doesn't work, so Papa pivots. He deflects. His stated reason suddenly becomes, oh, I just want Audie to focus on his studies. But Mama keeps pushing, gently, and he finally admits the real reason, his own belief that dancing is for women. And that's the key, right? You have to be able to separate the excuse from the actual bias to get anywhere.
And Mama's comeback here is just perfect. She uses simple, undeniable logic to take apart his weak argument. Audie is in Class 1, what studies now? I mean, come on, he's in first grade. The whole intense academic pressure thing is just not a real concern. By poking a hole in his excuse, she masterfully brings the conversation right back to the real issue, the gender stereotype.
This pretty much brings the whole argument to its breaking point in Section 4. But just when you think we've got a resolution, the apology itself introduces a brand new problem. It's like solving one issue creates a whole new one.
So after realizing he's been backed into a corner by logic and facts, Papa does something incredibly powerful. He just says, I am sorry. Simple, direct, and he says it not just to his wife, but to his son, Audie, as well. Those three little words just completely change the energy in the room. The tension is gone, And through this whole intense adult conversation, what was the one thing Audie cared about? This. He just asks, "Does that mean I can join the dance class?" His question just slices right through all the drama and gets to the heart of what mattered to him all along. For him, it was never about gender roles or parenting philosophy. He just wanted to dance.
Papa says, yes, of course you can join. But then he adds this little tag at the end, and try to come first there. Now listen closely to that. It's so subtle, but it's a huge shift. In the exact same breath that he gives his son freedom, he layers on the pressure to perform, to compete, to win.
And this one little exchange just perfectly lays bare the fundamental difference in their parenting styles. For Mama, it's about the experience. Let him just enjoy it. For Papa, maybe because of his corporate background, everything is seen through this lens of achievement. There has to be a standard, a drive to excel. So, after all that, what are the big lessons we can actually walk away with? Well, that brings us to our final section, the positive parenting takeaway. We're going to distill the key insights from this whole living room debate.
All right, here are the 5 big takeaways. First, stereotypes are so often passed down without us even realizing it. Second, a calm, strategic approach to a tough talk works way better than just going on the attack. Third, it is so important to learn how to separate someone's stated reason from their real reason. Fourth, never, ever underestimate the power of a simple, genuine apology. And finally, and this is the tricky one, remember that encouragement and pressure to perform are not the same thing.
And that leaves us with this final thought to chew on. Whether we're talking about parenting, or being a manager at work, or even just in our friendships, how do we encourage the people we care about to follow their passions without accidentally slapping our own definitions of success and failure onto them? It's a tough one, something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.